Apple TV's existence has been kind of interesting to me. It started as this Apple hobby where they just that last generation Apple TV was pretty basic, kind of cluttered, not the best thing, but I really think they struck on a gold mine with the new Apple TV 4 by adding apps to Apple TV, because lots and lots of app developers have been optimizing their apps for tvOS, especially mostly games, and you can pair a game controller with your Apple TV and use it kind of as a very, very basic console. It's definitely the most expensive TV box out there, but I've really loved it. I love the UI, I love the App Store. I think it's an overall great experience for what a TV should be. However, Apple TV has one very, very major Achilles heel, which is its tech specs. It's already pretty expensive as it is, so I can imagine them trying to keep the price down, and I imagine half of your money just goes into the TV remote, which they have a trackpad on. It has a gyroscope. The box itself only has like an A8 chip in it. Specs-wise, it is not that good at all. Only 32 gig and 64 gig options, and in terms of graphics, there's very little it can handle. And there's not even 4K support. Now, it is rumored that they're working on an Apple TV refresh that's very basic, as in the next generation Apple TV is going to support 4K, yay! And that's all we got. We haven't heard much else about it. I doubt it would even have a design change. It's just gonna be probably, hey, the last one's a little cheaper and the 4K one is the same price as the current one. I hope they don't make the 4K one more expensive. That would suck. The point I'm trying to get at here is that the Apple TV has a lot of potential if Apple would give it the specs to handle more stuff. It must be so frustrating to all these game developers, like they put Minecraft on the Apple TV, Modern Combat 5, Asphalt 8. They're able to put some pretty heavy-duty games. I get they're not heavy-duty, but considering the Apple TV's competition is not the Xbox or the PlayStation, the Apple TV's competition is like the Fire TV and Chromecast. Like, that's a pretty high-end game. So what my idea is, Apple, you kind of struck gold here. What if we went an inch further to where you're no longer competing with the Fire TV or the Roku or anything like that? You are now a full-fledged console developer, because the App Store is rich with very, very talented game developers who so far have been kind of put in a box of creativity because all they can make is stuff that works on your phone or your iPad, which is okay. There's some really great games on the App Store. And with the tvOS, they're pushed in an even tinier box where they have very little specs to work with. They can only output to 1080p, and it's very hard to require a game controller for certain games. What if, okay, hear me out, we put in the A10X chip, the chip that's going in the next generation iPads. Very powerful, very high graphics. Of course, a dedicated part of the Apple TV for handling high intensive graphics, so that with 4K support, we can support some very high level gameplay. Apple could make their own console to compete with Xbox and PlayStation. And please don't tell me Apple already made a console. I know, everybody gets it. They've done it before, it was a flop. Things are different now. And the difference with this Apple console, which I'm going to be calling the Apple TV Pro, which would look about the size of a Mac Mini, but have the same coloring as a regular Apple TV, would be so different than today's current consoles. I'm not one to be talking about gaming because I don't do much of it, but I have reviewed both the Xbox One S and the PlayStation 4. Both of them are relying on very, very old ways of adopting technology. As I complained about before with current day consoles, they rely on 3 different mediums to run their games. For one, you got your disc. Physical Media, one of the only companies that are still shipping devices that rely on DVD/Blu-rays. The consoles are the only things keeping those alive. And I get a lot of you people like it, but you're not the Apple sheep. Apple is all anti-physical media right now. Apple wouldn't do that. Consoles also rely on downloadable content so that you can't open the game unless you're connected to the internet. Sometimes if it's even single player, which is really dumb. Also, part of the game gets installed onto the console and takes up space. So it takes 3 different spaces to run one program. Apple's would be all online, and the main reason you can get app developers to make games for a certain product is when they know the product is going to sell like crazy. That is how you convince companies to make games. And the thing is, Apple has the largest group of Apple sheep that will buy anything they release. I think the Apple TV Pro would be very exciting to everyday Apple sheep because Apple hasn't really unveiled a brand new product line before. This would change things. This would be running tvOS, but certain flagship games could be compatible on it because it has the specs to handle it now. And there's no physical media. It would all be downloadable. This would also not have regular SATA drives like the other consoles do. This would have PCIe-based SSDs, ranging from 256, maybe 512 gigs internally. Of course, this console would be rather expensive, but I think it would have a real chance because I think app developers out there who want to make pro games that, you can play with a controller and that can run at 1080 at 60 or higher, because this next generation will support 4K, they will understand that Apple's core group of Apple sheep are going to buy this thing and expect lots of apps on it. So when Apple releases it, of course, all the Apple sheep are going to buy it, and all those game developers are going to want to have their games optimized for the TV Pro. Think about the potential here. You could have the W1 chip in the game controller. The TV Pro could hook up to AirPods really easily. You could have parts of the game interact with your phone somehow. kind of like how the PS4 interacts with certain parts of your gameplay. USB-C allows you to output incredibly high resolution at high frame rates. This TV box would have no moving parts, so it could be way smaller than the consoles you have now. And all these tvOS games could be streamed to your Mac, and Apple could finally have a foot in the door with the gaming market, which they've kind of been lacking in throughout their whole history. That is my pitch to Apple for the next generation of Apple TV. I doubt they'll do it. I don't expect you guys to be on board with it. This is just my rant of what tvOS could be, because I see a lot of potential. I love the UI. App developers are trying really hard to optimize their stuff for it, but they're just limited by those specs. I think you could have the next generation of console if Apple decided to unleash the Apple TV. Let me know what you think of my idea in the comments below. This is your Apple Sheep here, and I will see you in the next one.